And not that I wasn't really concerned from a storyline point of view because of literally that happening, but as a competitors, I do feel like they've done a really good job. Is it just unlucky that they've ended up where Daniel Bryan has become available? And would this have always been the natural outcome for this one? Because I get the feeling it wouldn't have been, and maybe Sammy and Kevin were due a win at this WrestleMania.
Yeah, I think that they've been up and down with this. I mean, this isn't even the first time they've been fired. They've been fired, rehired, setting a match. I think this is really one that they probably had a plan A and a plan B. It could have gone either way.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of believe that. And like you said, I wouldn't be too worried. I mean, there's always Raw, and they can get really creative with this. For all we know, they could end up going back to NXT. What a
That would
great
be
situation that
amazing,
would
wouldn't
be.
it? How good would that be if they did something like that? They won't because it's too good, but that would be so good if they did. But yeah, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed this match. Much again, I was expecting a little bit less. I'll say I didn't enjoy the Shane McMahon stuff, but for me, this gets a 3.5 stars. It would have got the 4 if maybe Shane McMahon didn't get as much offense in, but that just looks stupid to me. But overall, the crowd reaction to it, incredible. And Daniel Bryan, just having him back, what an amazing performer. Really good for everything. But I thought the match was, for me, almost a 4, but 3.5 for me. Matt, for you?
Yeah, I'll go with that as well. I'll go 3.5. I mean, I feel like if they had chosen a different partner, if they'd gone John Cena and, not forsaken the Undertaker match and just had the brother-in-laws there together, I feel like it could have been a 4-star.
Yeah, absolutely. They then announced, of course, that there are 78,000 people in there, and whether that's paying customers, we don't know. We'll find that out later, probably. But quite a big attendance, obviously, for that one. 78,000 people there, and then of course the next match that comes on, I'm like, when this came on straight after, I'm like, oh my god, I forgot about this, because it was literally like that. I was just concentrating on the other matches, so this Raw women's match just came out of nowhere at me, and then I kind of suddenly remembered. And I wasn't really too into the build up of this. I think it's been a bit odd how they've been with Nia Jackson, this whole thing of being bullied and her body and all the rest of it, and I'm like, man, it's just weird. But anyway, that's the way WWE are going to go. And yeah, we got all that. Of course, Alexa, she has quite an interesting entrance into this. What did you make of this match, Matt? Because people were a little bit cold on this one. They said it didn't live up to what it could have been. Do you think that was because of the come down of the Daniel Bryan match before it, or do you think this just wasn't what it was meant to be as a performance wise, Matt?
Yeah, I don't really reckon it was that so much. I just feel like this one was almost given too much time, if that would make any sense. I feel like the way she destroyed Mickey James, that worked out fine. That was a good part of the match, and it made sense. I just feel like once she got in that ring, they tried too hard to make Alexa still look good and strong, and I feel like we're beyond that now. We know how good she is. We know what she can do. It's time to actually, make Nia look good and just let her get her hands on her and just make this kind of squash match. If they're going to do that to John Cena, they can forsake Alexa for that kind of sake.
Yeah. It just was missing. I really thought they were going to have. I thought the build up to this has been. It's almost like the build up's been better than the match. I think you've just got to a point where the end product just isn't what it should have been. And what I really disliked about it, and I know it sounds awful because it shouldn't be like that, but Nia was almost crying before she'd even made the pin. I already knew she was winning. You look how emotional she was for that match. I was like, man, she's so into this. Obviously, an amazing feat for her personally, but it broke the character wall for me a little bit here. And all of a sudden, she's become a completely different person now. I'm seeing her completely different. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but was it the right outcome for you, Matt? Nia Jax going over on this one?
Yeah, I think so. A bit of a confusing one now, considering the Asuka kind of decision. I didn't see that coming, and Not sure where that's going to lead, whether these two will cross paths, but it's a good decision. I feel like Nia does deserve this, and there was a time when she was even doubting whether she'd make it to the top, whether WWE would allow that to happen, and she's believed in herself and actually made it this far.
Yeah, I mean, I think both these are solid workers, and I mean, Matt, you saw Nia Jax in London so many years ago, didn't you? When she was like in a match with Bayley, and look how green she was then to where she's at now. She's come a long way in a very short time. I see her progress very similar to Braun Strowman, in fact. And they both had they were doing squash matches, weren't they, about the same time as well on Raw. So I think the machine of WWE's done a good job with her. They've got her to where she needs to be. Just a bit sort of flat, I think, to get that championship, but just a little bit disappointing that the match didn't really live up to my expectations on that one. Nia Jax going over in a match that just went over just over 9 minutes in that one via the pin. Very emotional after. Matt, what do you give this match star-wise?
Oh, difficult to say because there's something definitely was off, but at the same time, I'm glad that Nia got her time to shine, and like I said before, the bit with Nikki, that was all. I'll give it 3 because I'm really torn about which way to go. I can't make my mind up.
Yeah, I'm going to go 2.5. I'm a little harsher than you, just because I was expecting a little bit more from this, but maybe it's just my expectations. But I'm going to go 2.5 on this one, on the outcome of that. Literally, that was just when that came on. Now, by this point, I've written a note here that when I was watching this live, Matt, I was starting to get a bit knackered now, and I was thinking, blimey, if you've been in that audience for that long, holy shit! Like, now when we go next year, Matt, I'm thinking like, are we going to do? We're obviously going to do the full hog because we're die-hard fans, but I wonder how that's going to feel fatigue-wise for us getting through all that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm interested to see because it's a long time, 7 hours. I mean, I go to football games; they're like 90 minutes, but like there's a gap in between, and you can chill. And I think that can go on quite a while. But man, like seeing all these matches and all these lights and all it is draining. I think with the whole thing, the emotions that go through you, it takes you on this ride. I just think it's just on too long. But I know we always say that. We also talk about Raw like that as well, but at this point I made a note that I was starting to get a little bit like, oh my god. And I've got to say, I think this match suffered for that, Matt, because I think the fans, I mean, this is the thing about this match, and people say, now, I'm going to say this much, Matt, before we get into this match, before we even talk about the entrances, I had loads of emails coming in that this match did not live up to their expectations. That they thought this was going to be way better than it was. But for me, Matt, I just think where this was positioned on the card, I think it hurt it quite a lot because, for an example, Matt, if this match was on, say, at number 1 or number 2, I think fans would have loved this. I think fans would have been, the energy levels would have been so much higher. They'd have been hanging on everything a little bit more because if you watch the match, it's really, really good, but the fans were I just think the fans were knackered by this point. And I've seen the New Japan Pro Wrestling one. I don't think it was as good as that, in my opinion. Matt, before we get into the match itself, of course, this was one of what they were calling the fantasy match, even though we've seen this before in New Japan, but the fantasy match for WWE at least. We got the Royal Rumble winner, Shinsuke Nakamura, gets this incredible entrance, by the way. Gets and he's got Alice Cooper's guitarist. She's at it. I love that entrance, by the way, Matt. I thought it was like really spot on. I was expecting the violin thing, but then when I saw that, I was like, this is excellent. Like, they've done a really good job with this. What did you make, Matt, of the entrances? First off, from seeing that and the expectation. What did you make of the highly anticipated fantasy match, as they've called it, match itself once we got into it?
Yeah, expectations were very, very high for this, almost more so than any other match on the card. People coming into this thinking, this is going to blow me away. And the entrances, Nakamura, he did have a great entrance, and really enjoyed, like you said, the guitarist. I mean, I went to see them when they played
of course you
Wembley
did.
a while back.
Yeah.
So it's great to see her again. She's brilliant on the guitar.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I was ready for it after that AJ's entrance. Nothing special, but it's just he's
phenomenal.
about what he's done in the ring, so I didn't mind that so much. So just going to get a good show when it starts. And it's almost like becoming victims of your own success, really, because we know how good both these guys are. I mean, 3 years ago, this could easily be booked against the best in the West versus the best in the East.
Yeah.
Could have been totally that way. And to be fair, the match was good. Solid match, great match. Like you said earlier on, people would have been blowing up over this.
Yeah.
I just feel like sometimes, people's expectations can be a little bit too high, because this was a pretty good match. I mean, I can't fault it in any way. There was nothing I looked in or saw in that match and I was like, oh, they could have done that better. I mean, false finishes are great and all, but there wasn't too much of that, and that is sometimes a better thing than seeing too much of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you turn the sound down and you're watching it, it's a great match. The problem is this just suffers from the fan reaction. They were just were not into this. What they were waiting for is, let's just wait till the end bit and wait for the near falls, and that happens so many times. But man, it's going to happen even more, because this is what suffers about WrestleMania being this long, and it's a shame because it's these big matches that suffer for it the most times. And I was actually expecting at one point, Matt, I think you remember Edge defended his title like first on the night when he had the championship, and they did that like for a few years running, where they'd have like the SmackDown title on first, and it was a bit weird at first, but then I kind of thought, well, actually it makes a lot of sense, because that's when fans are really buzzing. You get a big match done, and then but at this point, I feel like this would have been much better to be on early on than where it was on the card. But I think what I'm trying to say, Matt, is even Charlotte and Oscar would have suffered being on at this stage. Even though you think being on at the end should be the best, nearer the end, it doesn't always work out like that, because people have been sitting there for flipping 6 hours already, and they're just done. I mean, and it's going to be interesting, because I haven't experienced that, but that's going to be an interesting thing to it. Like, what are we going to be like? Because it just might be natural, and I really do think WWE need to either go back to what they used to do, or just simply have like an intermission or something in the middle, where what they used to do back in the day, and just give us like 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and then let's start again. Where fans can literally get off altogether and go and do something but to have matches constantly. And I know Stay Lucky, he put about the fact that they don't even have time now. There's so many matches that they don't even have time to do the backstage stuff anymore, Matt. Like, we don't get that, do we? I was thinking we haven't had that for the last few years, in fact, have we? Where we used to get that backstage segment. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to see that all the way through the night, but it's nice sometimes to see the legends, and it would have been nice to see like Jeff Jarrett do something with somebody backstage. Just gives you a little bit more variety. But even at WrestleMania 19, when we was doing that retrospective, we had the Playboy girls, whatever they were, and the Miller Lite catfight girls and Stacy. And I know it sounds that was pretty stupid and diabolical, but it does break it up a little bit. Whereas here, Matt, it was like boom, 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 match, match, match. I'm like, it's just too much. What do you think to that, Matt? I mean, are we missing? Because I actually miss just somebody interviewing, like Jonathan Coachman being backstage. Is it the fact that nobody can cut a decent promo anymore, that we don't have them? Like, what's happened to the interview before a match, Matt? Seems like it's gone. Yeah. It's weird.
A bit of a problem for that. I mean, yeah, it would be great to see that, but like you said, there's so much going on. And,
yeah.
Where do you squeeze that in? I mean, arguably this year we had those John Cena moments, but I wasn't really a fan of this.
Nah, that's the thing. And I mean, if you do put it in there, what's that? Another extra hour? You can't have that as well. So you can see why they don't. But like, I'm like, maybe they need to cut some matches out of this and just stick with the best of the best. Maybe that's the way of doing it. Because if you go back to WrestleMania 19, Matt, that was a 3.5 hour show. They managed to do 4 epic matches towards the end. They had Austin, Rock, Hogan, McMahon, Brock, Angle, Booker T and Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and they all were stacking at the end, and yet the fans seem more interested in that. And I just think it's because they probably didn't have 2 hours before. It's probably just